Political maneuvering between Friday and Saturday night stopped what could have been an epic victory for Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike in the presidential primary of the People's Democratic Party for the 2023 general elections. A former Vice President, Atiku Abubakar, eventually won the contest with 371 votes from the 767 national delegates accredited for the poll. Mr. Wike polled 237 votes to place second, followed by Bukola Saraki with 70 votes, Udom Emmanuel with 38 votes, Bala Mohammed with 20 votes, Pius Anyim with 14 votes, and Sam Ohwabonwa with a lone vote. On Daybreak today, we look at the fallout of the PDP primaries elections that produced former Vice President Atiku Abubakar as the flag bearer for the 2023 elections. And we're being joined by a spokesperson of the Pan-Niger Delta Forum, that's PANDEF, Mr. Ken Robinson. Good morning and thank you for joining us on Daybreak today.
Thank you for this opportunity and good morning, Nigeria.
All right, we also have Ali M. Ali, who reviewed the dailies for us earlier, also joining us to take a look at the post-PDP primaries. Thank you so much for staying with us.
Thank you for having me again.
All right, but before we go into discussions, let's listen to the PDP candidate, Atiku Abubakar.
Let me also use this opportunity to call on my fellow contestants and to assure them that I am ready to cooperate and work with them and give them a sense of belonging in this party and our next government. Therefore, my fellow compatriots, I want to appreciate your efforts in deepening our democratic processes in this party. It was a well-fought primary elections. So I commend you for that, and I look forward to working with you very closely so that together we can build this party to a level where we can take over the government. As I said earlier on in my remarks, I want to appeal to all aggrieved members of our party that they should please return to our party, and we are willing, we are ready, the leadership of the party, our governors, and myself, to make sure that their grievances are resolved within the party. Let me also appeal to aggrieved party members. There are internal mechanisms to resolve all disputes in this party. Let us make use of those internal mechanisms to resolve our disputes in our party instead of going to various law courts and getting contradictory rulings and contradictory judgments.
That's been the PDP presidential candidate, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. As we said earlier, we'll be discussing the fallout of the PDP primaries. And with us in the studio is the PANDEP spokesperson, Mr. Ken Robinson, and the Deputy President of the Nigerian Guild of Editors, Ali M. Ali. And we'll be joined later by the spokesperson of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, Mr. Paul Ibe. But before Mr. Ibe comes, Ali, as a journalist, yourself as a public affairs analyst, you've had Atiku Abubakar, and with the hindsight of what has happened leading up to his emergence as the candidate of the party, do you see his olive branch being accepted by other shades of opinion within the party to come for a collective journey?
Well, let's say he spoke like a leader, actually, after triumphing against all odds. The permutation before then was that perhaps it was going to be a very close call, except for a very, incurable optimism on his side. Nobody gave him, this much margin. People thought it was going to be a very close call. So yes, I think, yes, he said the right things, doing the right thing, made the offer for reconciliation. Now he's extended his hand of, if you like, friendship. It's up to those who, he's thrown the gauntlet now, it's up to them to pick it. But if before the primaries, what we've seen happen, the tsunami of exit that hit the PDP, especially in the Southeast, and I think Atiku actually was making reference to those elements, especially in the Southeast, who exited the party, big names like Abaribe, like that is the Senate minority leader, like Ike Ikoromadu, who has been in the Senate for years, 20 years. So for these elements, they have their supporters, they have their support base. And I think he's made that right. But then some of them, they've, I don't know, I've not heard where they've met, they pitched their tent. So between now and the time perhaps he'll name a running mate or the party would suggest a running mate, I think a lot of giving his legendary ability to trade horses, horse trading. Atiku has come across as a master in horse trading. Notwithstanding, also, sometimes he plays the politics of convenience. He's navigated different political platforms to achieve his aspiration as the nation's #1 citizen. And that's why his critics, his most ardent critics, point at that. Even part of the campaign strategy used by his traducer was that he has not been loyal to the PDP. And now he's coming to claim the biggest pie on the table of the PDP, which is, to me, I think, if the argument, because in politics, the moral argument, sometimes like some of this element put forward, cannot stand, it hardly stands, especially in this part of the world, where the parties, especially in Nigeria, are not driven by any ideological standpoint. They are mostly contraption to access and annex state power. They are not, if you look at the PDP and the APC, they are, well, different sides of the same coin. People make this allusion that some of those calling the shots in both parties were actually in the former parties and held visible position in the former parties. They are. Abdullahi Adamu was a PDP member. Ayu was an AMPP member. So people make that allusion. So, but I see with that, Atiku has extended the olive branch, like you said. He's thrown the gauntlet now. It's for those to pick it. And it's important for even optics now to be seen that he's walking the talk. In some quarters is that Atiku has this aura of someone who is highly forgiving. He is not given to, but you see, this is the time he needs people. He needs people that happen to actualize his dream. Just like, I don't know what magic they pull when some elements, withdrew and then also supported him against all non-permutations.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, now let's hear from Mr. Robinson. What's your reaction to Atiku winning the PDP ticket?
For us, Pandem, South, and together with the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum, our position remains that this is unfair, and these are disturbing times for us in Nigeria. And our premise is not based on any personal thing against Atiku Abubakar as a person. Let me recall that in 2018, PANDEF declared support for Atiku Abubakar, and we actually campaigned for him and mobilized for him, together with Afeni Ferrell and Ezindigbo and the Middle Belt Forum. We did that in 2018. But on principle, we felt that after 8 years of a Northern presidency under Muhammadu Buhari, it was fair and proper that power should rotate to Southern Nigeria, based on the principle of rotation that has been established in our political system over the years since 1979. And so what has happened, what the PDP has done is an affront on the people of Southern Nigeria. That's how we see it. But beyond that, we think that it was a predetermined outcome. It was programmed that Atiku would win, and we knew that long ago, as far back as November last year. And that's why we insisted on zoning. And in fact, it was the reason why the PDP jettisoned its principle of zoning and decided to leave the presidential ticket open for every Nigerian, because they knew and they wanted Atiku Abubakar to be their presidential candidate for reasons that are untenable. It is not that it's only Atiku Abubakar or a Northern candidate that can give the PDP victory in the 2023 elections. That assumption is completely not true. Southerners had won elections for the PDP before now. Obasanjo is not from the north. Good luck. Jonathan is not from the north. So the assumption and reflections and thoughts that it's only a northerner that can win an election for PDP in 2023 is completely untrue. It's unfair to the people of southern Nigeria, and we are rejecting the candidacy of Atiku Abubakar. And we are going to mobilize our people. Now, going forward...
Well, Mr. Robinson, sorry, just before you go forward, people say that this is democracy in which it is a game of numbers, that your people ought to, I mean, maybe the people from the south, or I mean the southern Nigeria generally, should put forward their own candidate and campaign and marshal their own campaigns instead of, as some critics of your own standpoint see it as maybe blackmailing the other parts of the country into submitting to your own.
This is not blackmail. This is reality. This is saying, look, we are one people. This country belongs to all of us. We all have stakes in this country. We have all, as a people, as Nigerians, built these two major political parties with our resources from all the states. APC, PDP were built by Nigerians, not just a section of Nigeria. And the composition of the parties reflects that national outlook, that these are Nigerian parties. It is difficult for a people to, within 1 year or thereabout, develop a force and structural mechanism to be able to beat these two parties. That's reality. And because we have together built these two parties to what they are today, it is just fair that after 8 years of a northern presidency under President Muhammadu Buhari, the next president of Nigeria should come from southern Nigeria. And so it is insensitive to think that, oh, that's okay, let's throw it open, and you people can go and also present your candidate, and politics is a game of numbers. When we reduce governance and politics to just numbers, we are turning this country to an animal kingdom where might rules. And so I will be left to do what I think I can also do. You understand what I'm saying? So it's not about numbers alone. It's about understanding. It's about mutual respect. It's about give and take. We supported Muhammadu Buhari. Southerners supported Muhammadu Buhari against a Southerner to become president of Nigeria in 2015. In 2019, some of us supported Atiku Abubakar. Some Southerners again supported Muhammadu Buhari to become president for the second term. And after 8 years, it's proper as a country. If we love peace, unity, if we want the progress of Nigeria, it is proper that we support the emergence of someone from southern Nigeria as the next president of Nigeria. And we would await the outcome of the APC presidential elections to see who they will present to the country as their own presidential candidate. Let me recall, very importantly, that in 2007, there were attempts by some Southerners to succeed President Olusegun Obasanjo. And some of us, including the national leader of PANDEF, Chief Edwin Clark, supported, worked with the late Bukola Saraki's father to ensure that its power returned to the north. And we expected the elite, the political elite, and even cultural and traditional rulers from northern Nigeria to show that goodwill back to southern Nigeria. And we cannot welcome another northern president for another 8 years after Muhammadu Buhari. It's unacceptable. And I'm conscious of the fact that I'm on national television, and so I'll be mindful and measure my words. But the truth is that people are unhappy, and this is a very disturbing time for people of southern Nigeria.
Okay, now we have joining us finally. Okay, all right. So just before we move into that, let me forward the next question to Mr. Ali. Yeah. Now, what factors would you actually say worked in favor of Atiku Abubakar? Because a lot of people are actually saying that the geopolitical distribution of delegates, that being more from the northern part, in a way affected the primaries.
Well, the factors from the time, like he said, in a way, inadvertently, he said the PDP primaries were primed to produce Atiku, were programmed. On the surface of it, it looks like so, because when the PDP threw open the contest, you will say, okay, yes, clearly, it gave us an idea that Atiku was perhaps the man primed to take the nomination. But beyond that, also, you see, the PDP is caught in its own contradiction. What I mean, when it's the only party, when people try to extend the zoning arrangement of the PDP to other political parties, especially the APC. APC, actually, there is nowhere in its constitution where it's enshrined that there will be power rotation. Perhaps the guys at the very top have an understanding, a gentleman's understanding, which is not written. But in the PDP, it's clearly written, which has been contested. Now, look at how the PDP was caught its own contradiction, and that ultimately worked in favor of Atiku as to emerge as a presidential flag bearer. Notwithstanding, like my colleague here pointed out, and I have argued in the past, in the course of the newspaper review, that, look, for national cohesion, Atiku should look in the southeast for a running mate. You understand? But you also look at numbers. You're talking about numbers. In politics, like I said, these are some of the factors, like you rightly pointed out, about the delegates. And then even the competitors of Atiku, they forgot maybe one other thing. They've done work, they work very hard, engaging delegates, going, meeting them one-on-one. But you see, the masterstroke that happened there, what couldn't be achieved is how somehow some of the contesting with Atiku from the region stepped down at the 11th hour. One of which that changed the permutation is Aminu Waziri Tambuwal. People had thought Tambuwal was going to go the whole hog. Then he made a dramatic at the 11th hour, and that tilted in favor. And then look at it, we're talking of numbers. If you really want to win, you look at numbers. You look at numbers. Atiku, if you like, has navigated the national political environment, terrain. For years, he has been a consistent presidential for plus minus 30 years plus. So these are some of the factors that work in his favor. First, when the contest was thrown open, clearly you can see that the PDP apparatchik was capitulated against all. If it had zoned it to the south, and then some people even in the south, I say it should be micro-zoned to the southeast. You understand? So
I will come back to you, but Mr. Robinson, some people point to the fact that even the South, then the candidates, or aspirants on the ballot on that day, did not receive much support from their delegates to point it as a pointer that maybe the Southeast or even the Southern Nigeria in general is not serious about this agitation for a Southern presidency. Because if you put the numbers, the votes, garnered by maybe the key Southern leaders, it shows that maybe a number of Southern delegates actually voted for candidates from outside the region. And I remember, just before you, to link this up, that the former chair, or the president of Mosob, Chief Wazirike, had recently come out to say that the Igbos aspiring for presidency were actually not serious, according to him, that they were actually looking for second fiddle as running mates. Doesn't these two scenarios now point to this issue?
I will respond to that by saying that the context was ab initio rigged. The playing field was skewed against Southern Nigeria. For instance, Northwest alone has 193 delegates because it was one delegate per local government area. Northwest alone had 193 delegates. If you combine the Southeast delegates that are 100 and South-South delegates that are 126, that's just two zones slightly above a single zone. And so those are some of the imbalances in Nigeria that we're asking that should be corrected. That's why we're asking for restructuring. Nigeria cannot be a fair and equitable society until some of these skewed and lopsided issues embedded in our constitution are corrected. In the first place, the idea of local government area is an aberration in a federation. Local government areas have no place in our constitution. They should not be mentioned. In the federation, there are two tiers, the federal and the states. And so that some persons from southern Nigeria, for very egoistic reasons, and you will always find people like that. There is no time in history that 100% of the people have supported an idea. And so for some persons, it's about personal interest, is what they will get, and they have elevated personal interest above shared goals. And so we understand the likes of the MASOP leader and even some other elements. We have several people like that in the South, particularly South-South, and even in the Southwest and the Southeast, who are agents and supporters of a northern candidate. But the general feeling in southern Nigeria is that these are not good times for this country, and we fear the consequences that shall arise.
Okay, Mr. Ali, now Peter Obi was a strong contender, in the PDP, just before he, withdrew and resigned from the party. Now that he's with the Labour Party, do you think he stands a chance?
Stands to be the flag bearer or to be the president?
Be the president, flag bearer and president.
Well, he may be the flag bearer, but I don't see him making any inroads. Even if he had remained in the PDP, it would have been a very tough call for him because the dynamics have changed, even in the PDP. If he had remained in the PDP, yes, on paper, I'm in love with Peter Obi. He sounds very good on paper. And then listening to him talk with specific ideas how to turn the economy, and then his personal enterprise, and if you like, personal discipline, which some Nigerians, he has repeatedly, demonstrated to Nigerians that he's a man of enormous personal discipline, which has metamorphosed into his personal industry, personal enterprise. But I don't see him making that, because you see, politics is about numbers. It's about numbers. He's the man, where I come from, we have this saying that the man who owns the pond actually owns the fishes. So if you have the number, you bandy it, and then you go home. You are home and dry. But yes, if Peter Obi is unfortunately, it's heart-wrenching because I like Peter Obi. On paper, he has clear ideas of all this jostling to be president of Nigeria. He's the one with clear ideas how to go about turning the economy. But you see, it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to walk that talk. We've seen people who have came short. When the APC, I always make this reference, the APC in 2014 actually bamboozled Nigerians. That what Nigerians needed to defeat insurgency, rising economic hyperinflation, increasing devaluation of the nation's currency was a war-tested general and a man from the clergy, from the pulpit, a prayerful warrior, if you like, an alpha of sort. So we have a general, a professor of law, and a clergy. This combination would defeat insurgency and then would give us some kind of spiritual armor to face Nigeria. But look at us, 7 years down the road, we're still talking about the same thing and with no sign of. So Peter Obi exit to Labour Party, well, it's political hierarchy, if you like. And if he had remained in the PDP, he would have remained a force in a way. But even at that, I don't see him pulling any large numbers. I don't see him making any inroads. Even until he moved to the PDP as in ABGA. What was his impact?
Yes. We are joined now by in the studio by the spokesperson of Mr. Atiku Abubakar, Mr. Paul Ibe. Thank you very much for joining us, and good morning. Let me quickly throw this first question at you. Your principal has just been declared as the winner of the election to fly the flag of the PDP in the next general election. But this comes against a serious tide, especially from some elements from southern Nigeria who feel that this should be zoned, the presidency should be zoned by the PDP to them. How do you react to these talks that this is against the principle of zoning in the PDP, and how is Atiku Abubakar going to weather the storms, especially with organizations like the Southern Middle Belt Forum publicly coming out to reject his aspiration?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Well, this is not really about Atiku Abubakar. Make no mistake about it. He has accepted the responsibility, with humility, and there is work, ahead of us. Thank God, the party, PDP have dodged the bullet and been able to conduct a free, fair, and credible election with all political process and all of that. And there will be winners and losers. But in this particular instance, there are no losers. Democracy, the PDP, and by extension, the larger Nigeria are the winners in this process. We need to ask ourselves a question: what actually do we want as a people and as a nation? Nigeria is at crossroads. Insecurity is rife. There is no economy. It's been obliterated. Lives are not safe. The value of human life practically non-existent. I think there is a unanimity among Nigerians that we desire leadership, that will take us out of this Egypt that we've been in the last 7 years. And in doing that, a process is in place. Parties are organized to wrestle power. Parties set their own internal rules. They are not cast in stone. I think what has counted for Atiku Abubakar at this historic time is the fact that the PDP as a party is tired of being in opposition. They want to win an election. If you don't win an election, there is nothing to share. And so it has become imperative that the party looks at, the prospect of a candidate who will be able to win that election. And I think that was what the delegates, did, over the weekend. Forget all the drama about those who stepped down. I mean, let's also not forget that a certain gentleman, and stepped down for weekend, and that didn't make the headlines. But the one that made the headlines was Tambuwa, perhaps because he's a governor, so to speak.
So, but how do you weather the storms, as I asked earlier, especially with the Southern Middle Belt Forum clearly coming out to lampoon the PDP and also your own principle that this is an injustice against the Southern Nigeria?
You see, having won, the PDP ticket, the Atiku's constituency has now grown beyond the party. His constituency is now Nigeria. In the last 2 months or thereabouts, he had engaged the delegates of the party, the stakeholders, and he's been handed the ticket. So he now has a responsibility to bring everybody on board. Naturally, emotions, and there are emotions, and people will feel, they've been handed the short end of the stick. But he has a responsibility to bring everybody, together. And the same message that he had been able to put across to delegates that resonated and had led to his victory, it's the same message that he has going to, he will continue to advance, to the larger Nigeria. And it's about, what he has called the unity seat, of security, of economy, of education, as a game changer, in development, in security, about devolution of power, which, the gentleman has spoken about. It is important, and this is a man, we know his antecedents. He said over and over again that this structure is not working for us, and we have to do something about that. And I think in the last 7 years, we have seen a government that is, not inclusive. People have been shut out. That has powered the state of insecurity and the separatist agenda that we are seeing all over the place. And we now have a gentleman, we know his antecedents, we know where he's coming from, we know him as a unifier, somebody who has the capacity to bring people together. I think it behoves us to be able to rally around this person and see how we can be able to turn around the economy, bring people on board, give people an opportunity. No one should be a second-class citizen in a nation that we all call Nigeria, we're all states. All
right, Mr. Robinson, let's hear your reactions as to what Mr. Paul has actually said.
I think that Mr. Paul has spoken very well. And let me restate what I said earlier, that we do not have anything personal against Atiku Abubakar as a person. It is on principle that we're saying we're rejecting his candidacy. Now, we will, as a people, I mentioned, await what the other major party will present to Nigeria as a presidential candidate. After that, we will sit down and make decisions. But for now, our position is that what has happened, what the PDP has done is unfair, is an affront against the people of southern Nigeria. In the interest of oneness, he agreed that Nigeria's structure is not working. We have used this structure for the past 60 years plus. And look at where we are today. It's never been this bad in terms of the insecurity, in terms of the divisions, in terms of the economy. People are suffering. The other day I was told NNPC has not been able to remit any money to the Federation account for about 2 months or so. It is that bad. And we need someone that will come and be a president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, a person that will see Nigeria as his entire constituency. Listen, sir, a person that will not tolerate some persons because they are from his ethnic nationality, even when they are doing things that should not be accepted. And then we allow situations to degenerate to where they are. And the truth of the matter is that they say blood is thicker than water. And Mr. Atiku Abubakar himself recently demonstrated some traits of that kind of character. And we are not comfortable with another Northerner ruling after 8 years of a Northern presidency. That's the baseline. And so Nigerians, as we did for the North in 2007, as we did in 2015, as we did in 2019, should at this time pay back and respond and show that same goodwill to the rest of Nigeria, that we are one people, that we are one country, and that this Nigeria belongs to everyone.
I'm sorry, there are agitations right now among a section of the ruling APC to also field another candidate as a way of checkmating Atiku, who they see as maybe pulling votes from the North. Because, as Mr. Ali has earlier said, this is largely about the politicians really calculate the numbers. Now, including these agitations have been spearheaded by people including former Governor Orji Uzokalu, who is an Igbo man. And only 2 days ago, I saw former Minister Femi Fani-Kayode also reinforcing that with the emergence of Atiku, that APC should have no option but to field a Northerner. So in the event APC field another Northerner, how do you, reconcile, how do you maybe paddle the waters ahead of the election?
I will answer straight to that. We have developed 3 scenarios. Okay. First scenario was that, and that was a perfect scenario, the 2 major political parties present 2 Southern presidential candidates. Second scenario, one of the parties would present a Northern candidate, another would present a Southern candidate. And then the third scenario, which is the worst scenario, is that the 2 parties will present Northern candidates. And we evaluated and felt that the first scenario was unlikely. The second scenario and the third scenario are the likely scenarios that will happen. And we have also projected appropriate actions for each of these scenarios. If the worst happens, that is APC and PDP presents Northern candidates, then we will ask ourselves whether Nigeria will still exist.
Well, that's a very tough one, and I don't want us to go to that, especially that we are on a live television. But let me go back to, Usain, do you have a question for Mr. Ali?
Yes, well, my question for Mr. Ali right now is, do you predict a seamless outcome, with the APC, considering, the number of contestants, not talking about, the presidential primaries, with the number of contestants, in the party?
I don't see a seamless selection process. APC, in a way, is reflective of PDP when it held sway at the center. What I mean at the center, when it controlled federal power. But then you see APC, unlike PDP, its conflict resolution mechanism is a bit frail. Under PDP, especially under Obasanjo, Obasanjo was that forceful enough to say, look, this is my candidate. It was at the 11th hour, he pulled literally a rabbit from his magic hat and hoisted Yar'Adua in 2007. And Yar'Adua was sickly. He was known to be battling with, ailment. This much was captured in the book written by El Rufai, Accidental Public Servant, that it was Obasanjo's game plan to have a third term via a sickly Eradua. But the rest, like they say, is history. Now, I don't see that APC is bound to implode unless the dominant force there is given chance, just like Atiku was given the chance to be the flag bearer, unless the dominant force there happens. Already there are scenarios now, and one of the scenarios, eventually my colleague here, in the course of this panelist, had listed the likelihood of the two major parties fielding northern aspirants. But don't forget, already there is already a presidential candidate, a dark horse, so to say. Rabi Musa Konkoso is there already as the presidential flag bearer of the NMPP. He may not have a national appeal, but in his constituency, you can see that he's growing every day. But whether that would translate into presidential votes nationwide when he faces the electorate eventually. Now, I see an imminent implosion in the APC. And some of the smart ones among them, they have option B, possibly C. Now, what I foresee is that there may not be a clear winner in the first ballot. And it's in the second ballot. Now, perhaps there will be a lot of horse trading. Look at what happened.
It would be the PDP.
Yes, precisely. So, yes, and you know, the Nigerian structure, people when they say, and Atiku, thankfully, in a way, he has said he has clear ideas of what to do about restructuring. But the APC actually promised to restructure. In fact, set up a committee to restructure. What happened?
Okay, thank you very much. Because we are running short of time, I will stop you there and quickly go back to Mr. Paul Ibe. Paul, you know, Atiku is the last election, especially 2019, that he was on the ballot. He harvested a lot of votes from the southern part of the country. Now, with this sort of backlash to his declaration as the PDP candidate from the southern Nigeria, wouldn't this affect his chances? And how are you going to ameliorate the situation going into the election? If you can respond to this quickly.
You know, one of the reasons why the PDP delegates settled for Atiku, they see him as somebody who has the capacity to bring people around the table. And it is very important, you know, that his skills be tested at this point in time. And since he's desirous of present over our affairs at this crossroads that we are in, the first challenge we're going to have is to be able to convince, Nigerian voters, to see the viability, of his candidacy. And I don't think, that would be a challenge. I think when the frayed nerves, when the emotions and all of that, people would, put across, a very strong message of why, he remains the most viable candidate at this particular point in time when Nigeria is at crossroads. Like I said, insecurity, no economy, life is worthless. The question is for all of us who go to the market, I do. The price of inflation is killing. And what do we want? What do we want as a people? Who are we looking up to be able to address all of these challenges confronting us? And I think he would engage. He would dialogue, with the various, stakeholders, from the Middle Belt, from Pandef, from the Southeast. These are people that he had worked with, before. And they've also bought into his idea, to restructure Nigeria, to devolve powers to the local governments and the state governments, so that people at the micro levels can be able to take their destiny in their hands and, desire what kind of things should be their priority.
All right, sadly, we have to wrap up the show here. But thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. First of all, spokesperson of PANDEF, Mr. Ken Robinson, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence.
And we appreciate it.